I am going to,
Hello.
All right.
Hello, everyone.
So,
hi,
yep,
Yep.
we're gonna stay on mute.
All right. Everyone, please be muted. Good morning. This is Ron Graham. I'm glad you're here today. We are glad to carry forward our theme of where do I fit in today.
Go ahead and unmute yourself, Ron. I had to mute everybody. Sorry about that. I didn't think it would mute co-hosts.
All right. Again, good morning. This is Ron Graham. I'm glad y'all are here, and we are glad to be holding the next extended session of Where Do I Fit In here today, and we're glad you're joining us for it. We have an extra member of the HAVIN team today. We have Chris Schiaffoni from Canada. Thank you for helping us as a co-host today. And I'm not going to talk much right now because I really want us to get the most benefit out of this. We have a panel presentation. Raul Gallegos will be our moderator this morning, and this morning or this afternoon, depending on if you're on the East Coast. So I am going to turn over to Raul, and thank you again for being here, and we're ready to roll.
Wonderful, and thank you, Ron, and welcome everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with HAVIN doing another Zoom meeting. I love Zoom meetings. My name is Raul Gallegos, and I'm going to be the friendly moderator of today's sessions. And so to give everybody an idea of how things are going to work is all of our different speakers will speak for some time, and after which there will be a part for Q&A. And the Q&A will be handled on a first come, first serve, and keeping in mind that we may not have time to answer all your questions in the spirit of keeping time going. And if we don't get to your question, chances are someone may ask the same question or something similar, but you can always email havin.tx@gmail.com just in case we don't get to your questions, and we will be able to have the appropriate person answer that question in case it doesn't happen today. So this meeting is being recorded, and it will be shared on our YouTube page in case you want to review it, or for those who were not able to attend. In addition, if you want to take advantage of the live transcription, we also have that enabled, and you can go to the live transcription portion of the app in your Zoom connection and be able to follow with what is being said in real time. To raise your hand, if you are on a Windows computer, you will press Alt-Y. From the Mac, you will press Option-Y. And from your mobile device, you will go into the More section at the bottom, or from the participant list and tap it there. If you are dialing in, you're going to press *9 from your telephone keypad. As of right now, everybody is muted without the ability to unmute, and that is by design, but we will adjust that as we need to allow for meeting participation, and that way it's not just a presentation that some could feel might be a little boring. So with all the Zoom logistics out of the way, let's go ahead and begin. Our first portion is going to be about congenital vision loss, and our first speaker is going to be Stacy Gallegos, someone that I know very well. All right, Stacy.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. I turned my voiceover off, so I didn't know if I was muted or unmuted. So good morning, everybody. This is Stacy Gallegos, and I serve as president of the Houston chapter of the National Federation of the Blind of Texas. So I represent the National Federation of the Blind on the HAVIN board, where I serve as secretary for HAVIN. I will be talking about today congenital blindness. If you remember, if you were at our first workshop a few weeks ago, I mentioned that my eye condition is Leber's congenital amaurosis, which is a condition that sometimes can be misdiagnosed as retinitis pigmentosa because there are some similarities. In my case, my eye condition, I was diagnosed officially at 6 months of age. My maternal grandmother made a point of mentioning to my mom that she might take me to the doctor because, as Granny put it, there was something wrong with that baby's eyes. So sure enough, at 6 months old, I went to the eye doctor. And of course, I don't remember this. I'm saying this from, anecdotal stories from my family. But I was officially diagnosed as being blind. And as time went on, when I was younger, like as a child, I wore very thick glasses. My vision, I think when I was younger, was about what one of my friends says, I had enough vision, just enough vision to get myself in trouble. So it really was not, for all intensive purposes, very functional. And so when I want to say probably in definitely first, second grade, started really having very poor vision in that I could see to travel without a cane, although it wasn't advisable. So the way that I explain my vision to people today is I function as a totally blind person. And although I can see some light, it is very inconsistent. So I have inconsistent light perception is what I tell people. I'm able to see during the day when it's light outside, but if I go into a room, unless I have physically turned on the lights, I don't know that the lights are on. I have what some might describe as kind of phantom type vision. So I might see lights on if lights are not on. So I, for all intensive purposes, am totally blind. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that when I was 6 years old, and I should go ahead and tell you that I have a younger brother and sister, both of whom are sighted. So I'm the only blind person in my family. When I was 6 years old, I went to the Texas School for the Blind for a 6-week summer program, kind of like a summer camp away from home. And that was my first experience away from my family. Doing typical summer camp stuff, but I was with other blind children, so I had that experience. When I started the second grade, it was decided that my mom made the decision to send me to the Texas School for the Blind, what was then Texas School for the Blind, and today subsequently added visually impaired to its name. So now today it's Texas School for the Blind and Visually Impaired in Austin. She made the decision based on the lack of services that my home school could provide. So she made the decision for me to go attend Texas School for the Blind as a full-time residential student. This initially, I'm sure, was very hard on her. I suspect that I was somewhat homesick as well. But as time grew on, my mom really could see the benefits of what I was getting by attending the School for the Blind in Austin. I, at a very young age, started learning very valuable things like chores and independent living skills, travel skills. At that time, we're talking in the early 80s, assistive technology was really not even thought of, or if it was, there were some limited technological devices available to blind people. But as time went on, in my years at the School for the Blind, I started attending in second grade, and I attended school through graduation. So for 10 years, that's where I attended school. Today, because of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA as it's called, the going to a residential school for the blind is what is called a most restrictive environment. So the disadvantage of me going to the residential school was that it took me out of my home community and took me away from my family. The advantage was that in addition to learning the typical math, reading, and writing, I got full exposure to the expanded core curriculum, which is a set of competencies specifically identified for blind and visually impaired individuals. So before the expanded core came into being, I was learning how to cook, I was learning chores, I was learning how to be a self-advocate. And I tell people that it is because of my time spent attending the Texas School for the Blind. I really give credit to my teachers and dorm parents, because without them and the valuable lessons that I learned, I would not be the person that I am today. Just like any typical kid, I got to experience, I think because of going to the School for the Blind, I had more experiences than I would otherwise have had I stayed at home and got a subpar education from the local school district. So I participated in sports, I participated in student council and music, and did all of these different things. And I really think, especially my participation in athletics, really helped me to develop the values and the things that I really consider important in people. Things like integrity and work ethic and commitment and being a team player. So I was very, very grateful for that. When I was a teenager, and I started high school, I did have some experience with attending a local public high school. So I was able to network and meet and be in the general education environment with other sighted students. I was a typical teenager in that I, just like teenagers today, you don't want to do anything to make yourself look different, and you care about what other people think. And so for that reason, I was not a big fan of using my cane. I had a cane, and I didn't have enough vision to sufficiently move around, but I was willing to make myself look like a fool by bumping into people. And so I really have to credit my experience with a local high school of helping me feel comfortable with who I was, because I did have some embarrassing times with my cane, without a cane. And subsequently, it's because of those embarrassing moments that I learned that using a cane was not all that bad. So when like I said, I graduated from the School for the Blind, and because I had been around blind people for 9 months out of the year for 10 years, I felt like I needed to move away and find where I, as a blind person, fit into the sighted world. And I think this is really important for anybody, whether you have a disability or not. Everybody has a place in the world. But people with disabilities, we have to find out how we are going to fit into the majority, which is the non-disabled world. Everybody, if you have a disability, we all have a place. So for that reason, I moved away from Austin, a city that I could pretty much tell you like the back of my hand going where to go. I moved away and went to college at Stephen F. Austin State University. Because I'm somebody that has never allowed blindness to dictate what I do in life, I entered college as a double major in biology and physical education, or kinesiology. It was very shocking for a lot of the people, the professors at the university. Nacogdoches is in East Texas, and it's a very small town, or it was at the time. And subsequently, with small towns, you tend to have people that have some small town mindsets, and they have a different perception of what blind people are capable of. So I met, along my college path, I met a lot of people who did not believe that a blind person, a totally blind person, could get a degree in physical education. I had a lot of pushback. I guess I can tell you is I really wish that I had known the National Federation of the Blind at that time. Probably would have been able to get some very good support. But anyway, I did graduate from college. My biggest fear when I graduated high school, even though I had experience being around sighted people, my experience attending public high school, I really was scared and wondered if I would be able to make sighted friends. All of my friends, for the most part, had been blind, even though I had some teachers and dorm parents who were sighted that I had developed friendships with. But the majority of my friendships growing up were blind people. And so I was kind of nervous about, am I going to be able to make sighted friends? I had the skills, I had the travel skills. By the time I graduated high school, assistive technology had been developing, and so I knew how to use a computer. I started college with a Braille and Speak 200. Gotta love Dean Blasey. Had travel skills. I had self-advocacy. But I was genuinely scared about what were sighted people going to think about me. As time went on, and as I got further into my major classes for my degrees, I did start to make sighted friends. And what was really cool was not only was I helping them learn about blind people and changing some of their mindsets that they had about blind people, I was also, they were helping me realize that, hey, you're a great person. And, as time went on, people actually did not think of me as a blind person. And I think that's really important because we are people first. Your disability or your abilities do not define who you are. So I like people to think of me as Stacy Gallegos, or president of the, National Federation of the Blind Houston chapter, or man, she loves football. I don't want them to think, oh, that blind girl. So I graduated, I successfully made it through college. I did have some trying moments, but I think the fact that I was willing to stick with my major despite the roadblocks that were put in my path really speaks to my my stubbornness, but my desire to fulfill my dream of what my goal was, to be a teacher, to be a coach, because I wanted to be for my students what my teachers were for me. So I graduated from college. I did get my dream job, or what I thought was my dream job. I moved to Kansas, where I taught school at the Kansas School for the Blind. I served as the athletic director, and I coached 3 sports: track, cheerleading, and goalball. And I did that for 6 years. So
real quick, just to
Yep.
give you a heads up, let's go for 2 more minutes, so we'll have
Okay.
time for questions.
Cool. So, here I was, I had my skills, my blind skills. I had my confidence was raised because I was like, well, I've made sighted friends in the sighted world, so I'm going to move to Kansas, and I'm going to be able to make friends there. And so life was great with that. I had my dream job. So I did that for 6 years. And then I moved back to Texas, where I'm originally from. I started working for our state, what was then Department of Assistive and Rehabilitation Services, Division for Blind Services, once known as DARS, as a blind children's specialist. This is really where I found my niche, because I was able to work with blind children and their families. And I found that working with families is really a true passion of mine, because it gives me an opportunity to show parents that in spite of having a blind child, or despite having a child who is blind, your child can, if given opportunities, be a successful contributing member to society. So I did that for 9 years, and then kind of did a career change, entered the chapter of uncertainty in my life. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I toyed with the idea of moving back to Austin and possibly working at the School for the Blind. And wouldn't you know, I ended up meeting this wonderful man. At the time, was not thinking that was going to happen. But I met my now husband, Raul Gallegos, and decided to do a complete career change. And so now Raul and I own a small business, RGA Tech Solutions. And for those of you that know me, or anybody that would know me, they would, and they find out that, I'm now helping to run an assistive technology business, and I actually can teach assistive technology. They're like, that's awesome, because my technology skills at one point, I was only wanting to know what I needed to know to get what I needed to get done and be done with it. But now, thanks to Raul and his wonderful teaching, and just, I have discovered that technology is absolutely great. And I actually have more skills than I've given myself credit for. And by working in, continuing to work in this business, it gives me an opportunity to do what my true passion is, and that is serving people who are blind, and helping people who are blind of all ages realize that blindness is not something that's going to keep you from being successful. Technology is one of those things that you have to have technology skills today if you want to be a part of the world. So with that, I will turn it over for questions.
Wonderful. So I want to say for the record that while I don't think of you as that blind girl, I do think of you as my wife first over a president or a trainer, but that's me, and I hope nobody else thinks of you that way.
That's good.
All right.
Good sucking up, Raul. Good sucking up.
It's part of the contract. I have to earn those points. So we're gonna go ahead. I've allowed people to unmute themselves, but I would like for Greg and Chris to please take over, and we're gonna do this in a way that folks can ask questions. We want to do it on a first come first serve. If you have questions before we move on to the next, let's not take more than 5 minutes. If we finish within 5 minutes with those questions, that's great, but otherwise the 5 minute will be our cutoff. All right, so Greg and Chris, please take it away. And then after Stacy and the questions will be Karen. All right.
All right, so if we got any questions, please raise your hand so we can acknowledge you. If you want to, you can also put your questions in the chat. All right, so we got a couple, looks like. Sorry. Alyssa, you go first. Go ahead. You can go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question.
So you mentioned about you not wanting to use your cane as when you were a teenager, as some of us teenagers do it now.
Yep, I did mention that.
Did, like, say me, I don't like using my cane, and I know I have to use it. Would you recommend someone to like really like use it proper, like focus and use it more and their community, and someone to go to college?
I definitely think that the way I see it is you have two options. If you want to move around with confidence and you want people to know that you know where you're going, even if you don't, I would recommend you use a cane. If you want to bring unnecessary attention to yourself and you want to embarrass yourself, and even more importantly, you want to hurt yourself because falling off of a curb or running into a pole, and those of you that know me and know how fast I move, running into a pole is very painful. It is very painful. So I felt for me that I wanted people to know that I knew where I was going, even if I didn't, and I didn't want to bring you tend to be more embarrassed by the attention that you draw to yourself instead of the attention that you're going to get for other things, if that makes sense. So I highly recommend someone with low vision, or definitely someone with no vision. You need to have good cane skills. And then many years later, and unfortunately, I didn't have time to talk about this, but I did, I have had guide dogs. So the funny thing about it is, real quick, is I did not realize how fast time goes because I was just chit-chatting away. So, but yes, I definitely think using your cane is highly recommended.
Thank you, Stacey.
All right. Thank you, Alyssa. Taylor Cooper, if you'll go ahead and unmute yourself.
All right, Stacey, that was a good presentation. Good. I really enjoyed your story because it encourages everyone that you can really fit in, but anybody can fit in either way. But my question is, what were your biggest challenges that you had in college? Was it like the subjects, the way to study, the technology you needed? What were they?
So that's a great question.
Real quick, if I may, just to put my moderating hat on, let's try for both panelists and participants to limit your question to within 30 seconds, and same with the answer if possible.
So for me, the academic side of things was not the struggle. It was biology is very much a field that requires vision, as is physical education, because the major required me to take things like team games and individual sports and games. And so because I didn't grow up in my physical education classes playing basketball and volleyball and softball and those kinds of things, I had to learn as a college student some of the skills. Like I had to learn what is a basketball layup, what is a basketball, how do you dribble a ball? So the skill aspect of the physical education courses were challenging for me, but I did my best. My grades weren't the best, but I was able to get through my classes without asking for special modifications, which is what I wanted.
All right, we're going to have time for one more question. Greg, if you want to pick the next person.
Okay, and that will be Alexis.
So Stacey, I just quick question. I'm working with a student who has no vision. The student just transferred from a school for the blind in our state, and he's struggling with social acceptance at the high school. Any tips?
Well, I think that what I would say to parents and teachers of the visually impaired is encourage your student to get involved and really work with the parents to, try to get the young man involved in some community sports or community activities, whether it's church, scouts. I mean, there's all kinds of things, volunteer opportunities where he has an opportunity to be a part of the sighted, world and really work on learning how to be socially appropriate.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, wonderful.
Before we go on, Raul, Comedy,
yes.
We did not get to you, but if you keep your question, there will be time at the end to question the panel that is still here. So even though we didn't get to you, you still can ask your question later.
Thank you.
maybe put it in the chat so you
Yeah,
don't
I
forget,
was
and we'll
about to
definitely
say
get
that.
to it. Yep.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Stacy. And moving on with our next presenter, we have Karen Itel. And forgive me if I mispronounced your name. I figured people constantly mispronounce mine, so it's only fair that I mess up a few here and there. So, all right, Karen, it is about 11:30. If you could take some time, and then we will make sure and have some time for questions as well. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Rowell, and no, you did not mess up my last name. And also, uh, I want to reiterate the thing with the cane. I can take it from a little bit different standpoint than Stacy, and that is, I used to be a high partial, and I could travel without a cane when I was younger. I wouldn't dare try it now, for the very reason Stacy's mentioned. And I made a decision before it became a problem to switch to the cane. So, and the other thing I want y'all to know about me is I was born with rubella, or some people call it the German measles. My mom had it when she was carrying me. I, on the other hand, went to public school all during the school year, and then went to summer school with the School for the Blind. So I like the contrasting social aspect of it. I have some blind culture, social skills, and then I have my quote unquote sighted people social skills. And I like the germination of both of them. And what I do for in the main communities, I'm very involved in following hurricane preparedness. Ron knows that he gets sick of hearing about it. I also play music. That's my passion. And I am a Braille reader and the president of the Braille Revival League of Texas, which is an affiliate of the American Council of Blind of Texas. And what brings me to HAVIN as a board member is I am the representative for the Houston Council of the Blind. And I'm one of these that will tell you to read more Braille. That's all there is to say to my spiel, because Stacy done the rest of it for me. Thank you, Stacy.
No problem, Karen. That's what we're here for, to work as a team.
Right. So do we have any questions for Karen? Doesn't look like any hands raised. Any questions in the chat, Chris? Doesn't look like we.
Not even
Okay.
one question.
Okay.
That's nice.
I
I also play music. If y'all interested in that?
I will say this, since we didn't get a chance to get to her, maybe we can go ahead and have Kamani to ask her question. I know I'm butchering your name. I'm sorry. Oh, Ned, go ahead and come off of mute, Ned.
Yes, this is Ned. Can you hear me?
We sure can, Ned. Go ahead.
Yes, yes. My question is to Karen about her music. I'm also a musician, and I played piano and pipe organ for many, many years. But as I lost my vision, I couldn't read the notes anymore, and I never played by ear. So, and I miss my piano playing. Karen, do you play by Braille music?
No, I tried to learn Braille music twice, and it was either the Braille music or I quit. So I didn't want to quit, so the Braille music had to go by the wayside.
So do you play by ear, or do you simply memorize, or?
I do it by ear.
Okay, because see, when I studied music, I would practice pieces so much it became part of my repertoire, and I could just sit down and play it. But if you don't use it every day, you lose it. You see, that's what happened to me. So, okay, I'm just wondering how Braille music works. If you have to feel the music, play the
I
keys.
will answer that part. I can tell you that as a Braille music user, don't let me talk you out of doing Braille music just because it didn't work for me. It doesn't mean it doesn't work for other people. What happened with me is my playing skills to advance to the portion that was very disproportional. Had I studied the two of them together, it would have worked better.
Okay.
But what happened is, and I'm trying not to brag in saying this, my playing got to a point that I was very good at playing with by ear and very terrible at reading music. And because the skill levels are so opposite in proportion, it was like it wasn't going to work no matter how hard I tried. And so with the braille music, what one would do that can stick with and stick it out is you play with one hand and read the braille with the other. Memorize that part. Switch hands and then read the other clef with the other hand. So the one you're not playing with is the one you're reading.
Okay.
If that makes any sense.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Ned, for that. And so we are moving into the next presenter. This will be a virtual presentation, as if what we're doing now isn't virtual. But what I mean by that is
Very
this person.
virtual.
Yeah, exactly. Virtual, right? So next is Terrence. And Terrence is unfortunately not able to be with us today in person. And so he has pre-recorded his presentation. It goes without saying that we will not be able to ask the presentation for any sort of questions. And so I would invite folks who have questions for Terrence to send an email to havin.tx@gmail.com, and we will see that Terrence receives those questions so that he can answer you by way of either the HAVIN email address or by emailing you himself if he's comfortable with sharing his email address. Most of us here on HAVIN, I'm obviously not speaking for everybody, but I think most of us are comfortable with sharing our addresses. However, to give you one central point of communication, that's where the best place to send questions for this presentation and any other presentation that happen. And so I am going to now start his presentation. And this is from Terrence Gosey.
Good morning or good afternoon, depending on your time zone. My name is Terrence Gosey. As you all know from the social media blast, this event was kind of my baby, and I sincerely apologize for not being able to be there live. We had a death in the family, and that is the only reason that I'm not with you guys live. So anyway, I was starting out on a sad note, but I'm a person that has retinitis pigmentosa. I was diagnosed at the age of 2, and I know you're wondering, how does a 2-year-old get diagnosed with a congenital eye disease? It actually runs in my family. My grandfather had it. So when my parents realized that I had an astigmatism at 2, they had me tested. And that was pretty much that. Starting out, I did not use any adaptive equipment. I just kind of thought of myself as low vision. No canes, no magnifiers. I think the most I did was, we let my teachers know that I had a vision problem, and so I kind of tried to sit in the front row or get notes or things like that from my friends and copy them down that way. So the way I started out learning low vision techniques was following and learning from my aforementioned grandfather who had RP. And actually his was made worse by a work accident that he had. And it took even more of his vision than the RP. So things like using your finger to measure the amount of liquid in a cup, walking deliberately, kind of almost kicking slowly to watch your steps, your hands out, all of the basic O&M skills that you use without a cane, I learned strictly from watching him. And I kind of picked those up and kind of just would use them because I've always been night blind. Some of the conditions of RP are tunnel vision, night blindness, nearsightedness, lack of peripheral what are some other photophobia, which is light sensitivity. So there's a mixed bag. So a lot of times when people ask me what can I see, the honest answer is I don't even know from moment to moment what I'm gonna be able to see. So there are two non-medical jargon definitions of RP that I like. And one is having RP is like being able to see a dime drop across the room and it lands perfectly in your tunnel. And as you go to pick up that dime, you trip over the elephant that you never saw laying in the middle of the floor. And it kind of leads into the second, which is having RP, we're oftentimes considered too blind to be sighted, but yet still too sighted to be blind. So the low vision aspect is kind of what leaves us in the gray. So growing up as a kid, I literally didn't realize I was able to even have a cane or have accommodations in school or any of that until I got to the 9th grade and a health science teacher at Health Professions told me, hey, you might be able to get a cane and get some services and training and things of that nature. And I was all over it. In my adjustment to blindness piece prior to that, I had actually had the nickname Blind from a funny story I have when I was on a basketball team. Very first game I got in, and I was not always tall. I had already made the team as the lovable underdog, undersized, short, chubby kid. I just practiced a lot and happened to make the team. So I get in the game, come off the bench, obviously. First play of the game, I'm wide. I managed to get wide open in the corner. The point guard passes me the ball and it flies outside of my field of vision. And I fumble the pass, drop the ball, and it rolls between my legs. And before I could relocate the big brown basketball, it rolled out of bounds. So the team and the coach started calling me blind. And it stung at first because it was born from an embarrassing moment, but it became like my nickname. And people would just, hey, what's up, blind? And I was cool with that because there was no malice in it after. And so that got me comfortable with the word blind. So fast forward to this health science teacher that tells me that I'm able to get a cane. And, combined with a few stories like that, middle school prom was basically a dark, loud room that I was completely uncomfortable moving around in. I saw it as an opportunity to, hey, like, I can get a little more independence. Like, this will open up actually being able to enjoy some nighttime activities. So got in contact with DARS and switched schools after that. And so the lady never actually got to see me with the cane, but I started using it in the rest of my time in high school and got introduced to magnifiers and large print books. And that's probably where some of my growth spurt, shoulder wise at least, came into play, because if you've never seen a set of large print books, it's essentially like carrying around an encyclopedia. So yeah, imagine carrying around a full encyclopedia set on your back. And that was class. So that contributed a lot to my growth as far as being a large man. So I started learning the cane in high school. My O&M instructor would come and pull me out of class. And kids being kids didn't know when I had the cane hanging from my belt, because I could still, in my mind, see during the daytime and during well-lit areas. So I literally only used it at night or when I felt like I actually needed it. So kids would assume it was, I got questions about nunchucks. I got questions about, are you in band? Or, the things that they think the cane is crazy to me, which, made it kind of funny. I would also get questions about some of the people pulling me out of class, like, or is that your PO? Like, did you do something? Like, who are these people, like, coming to get you out of class? It was really funny. So on the cane acceptance, outside of beyond just advocating for a new level of independence, the very first time I used it, I was at a Battle of the Bands with my little brother, following him and his friends. If you've ever been to the Astrodome at night, it is really, really bright. So I didn't it was one of those situations where I didn't technically need the cane, but I was practicing. And so in practicing and following my brothers and the sounds of their voices as they talk to navigate the parking lot, this lady comes up and goes, "Oh, can I help you?" Right? And I'm thinking like, you think like how Mother Teresa would look or something. So I open my eyes, and it is the most gorgeous woman I've ever seen in my life. And to this day, this mystery woman, I've never got her name because I was really dedicated to learning the cane, and I was shy at the time. So don't know who you are, but you changed my whole thinking as far as insecurity about walking around with this stick, because if these are the type of people that are going to approach me, then let's go. And by and large, over the years, my support system has been off the charts incredible. Like I mentioned, my teammates were really supportive. Even once they found out I was actually blind. I was in theater in the 11th and 12th grade, and my roles, my castmates knew that I couldn't see in the dark, and they would help me move around between scenes, never once tripped, never once failed. They were amazing. We didn't make a ton of noise, and we got to our next blocking points, and we're ready for the next scene. People in college, my mom, when I worked at Texas Southern University as a tutor, sometimes I would get off after dark, and my mom dubbed some of the young ladies that would help me get to the car the cute canes. So, which was funny. And I mean, just the level of support that I've received from friends and family, and as far as being understanding and supportive, has been just top notch. And I thank them and I love them dearly for that. So on acceptance again, at my time at Texas Southern University, I used to play dominoes between classes. And a friend of mine that I used to play with, one of the people, I was twirling my cane in class one day, kind of like a baton. I mean, not in class, but while I was sitting there waiting to play dominoes, and he was like, "What is that?" And I was like, "It's like a blind stick. It's my cane." And he's like, "Bro, you're not blind. Like you up here playing dominoes every day. Like, how are you blind?" And so I extended the cane, and he's like, "Bro, what?" He's like, "Yo, we gonna start calling you blind man." Once again, used to the term blind. So, and again, no maliciousness at all. It was all love, dap, hugs, whatever. I walk in the room, "Hey, blind man," it is what it is. So, continue tutoring, actually taught the summer program Upward Bound, graduated, couldn't really find a job in my field, took a job as a clerk at the food stamp office. And it was the first time I ran into a negative as far as my vision, because the amount of mail combined with trying to answer the phone, and I didn't have like a great CCTV or anything. I just was trying to sort all of the incoming correspondence with a little handheld magnifier. So naturally that didn't work out. Went back to DARS and was like, "Hey, I might need some more training or something like that." They sent me to Chris Cole, which I was like, I didn't really want to go because I'm from Houston, didn't want to leave my support system. And I went on tour and immediately changed my mind, because the level of independence that it looked like I was going to gain, they taught everything from travel. I mean, I had learned how to use the cane. I sort of learned how to ride the bus, never really did feel comfortable enough or confident enough to actually do it on my own. So those things, I'd learned Braille, which was the first time I was introduced to that. It was my first time being introduced to a screen reader. Now, this is post-graduation, so I squinted and stumbled my way through college, and then found out there's a such thing as a screen reader and audiobooks, and wow, your life could have been a lot more easy. So graduated and went there. Like I said, a complete life-changing experience, because this is where I became a full-time cane user. And meaning prior to that, even though I was comfortable with my cane largely, you know, I still thought of myself as sighted during the day. So it was always either on my belt or in my backpack or wherever I kept it. And so because we were under blindfold all day and you basically had to have it in your hand, and because it was getting dark when we get out of the training, as I explored the city and things, I realized even in the daytime, like if we would walk to the park to go swimming or something, like because I didn't know the terrain, I was using my cane in the daytime. And what I realized was it was the first time I was able to pick up my head as I walked. And not so much just that I was completely unconfident before, but just being able to pick up your head. Like my grandmother used to fuss at me a lot about like, why pick up your head? Like, why do you walk with your head down all the time? Are you sad? Are you okay? Like, and I'm like, Grandma, I'm really just trying not to fall on my face because, you know, with tunnel vision, you literally have to watch your step if you're not using a cane. So 25 years old, it was the first time I was able to really pick up my head and actually look at my surroundings and you know, be more aware and even do some people watching, you know, if the lighting permitted and things like that. And it was my first time being independent, being able to go downtown like 6th Street, watch a game, listen to music or whatever, what have you, you know. We would just kind of move around and it was of your own accord. You didn't have to wait on a ride or wait on somebody to be free before you could go and do as you pleased. And so it opened up this full new level of independence for me. And so, you know, I'd graduated before, but I felt like this was my life-changing moment. So I came back to Houston. I worked as a transcriptionist for a few years. Got to enjoy more independence in Houston. During that time, I married my wife, who I met at Texas Southern University. And ironically enough, her family has where she's dealt with vision loss and she was completely comfortable with that. And that's one thing I can say as far as like having a comfort level that I've always more or less had due to my experiences is that the more comfortable you are and the more secure you are in who you are, the more comfortable other people will be around you and interacting with you, even within impairment. And so some of the things that I use now that I'm a substitute teacher, and just imagine that, keep in mind, I told you my last name, my name is Terrence Gosi. So imagine walking into a room holding a cane and going, I'm Mr. Go See, which a lot of my kids, that's even weird for them because I I even tell them like, you'll never forget my name because I'm the blind guy named Go See. So, you know, a lot of them call me Mr. G. And throughout the day, I'll use my CCTV, you know, to take attendance and things like that. I'll use my tactile watch, which you can basically tell time with your fingers. I don't know, for those that can see, I'm, you know, kind of demonstrating that a little bit. And, you know, just use the things. Obviously, like I said, I'm a full-time cane user. I use my speech and magnification on my phone and tablet and computer. I use Fusion. So I use everything at my disposal as needed and sometimes lean more toward non-visual techniques even when I can see for efficiency purposes. So, I mean, that's kind of my story in a nutshell. I kind of breezed through trying to stay within time constraints. I wanted to do that, and you know, if you guys have any questions, I know I'm not there live for the Q&A portion, but you can always email the HAVIN team, and I will definitely get back with you with any answers that you may be looking for. If I have them, of course. I took part in a study as a kid for vitamin A, the vitamin A treatment for RP. I was one of the people that did that even as a youth. It wasn't really altruistic or anything. It was just something, I guess, that was kind of chosen for me. And I've taken part in several studies since then. I did the maze thing a few years back and, you know, did some fundraising for Foundation Fighting Blindness. So hopefully we can find a cure for it one day. But if not, I mean, given Uber and iPhones and assistive technology, if you have to be blind or if you have to be low vision, there has never, ever been a better time to do so because all of the tools are right there at your disposal. So I hope I helped you out with my story. I hope it resonated with you and look forward to seeing you guys next time. Love you all. Peace.
Man, I tell you, that was a great story. And
It was. It was.
I have to mess with him about the cute canes. So great story.
Well, to give everybody an idea of where we are with time, we have about 4 minutes until noon. And so what I'd like to do is take this time. We obviously can't do a Q&A with Terrence, but we can kind of do just a quick 4-minute hello session with folks with the intent that we will start with Ron right at 12 o'clock. And so that's in less than 4 minutes. I do have to say the first time I met Terrence was at a DARS function where he and I spoke about our experiences and successes with DARS. And I never knew until today that he also did drama in school, because so did I. And I never knew he had a beautiful girl experience like that where, and so did I with the cane and stuff. So that's kind of cool.
And that was also because I did as well. So, so all of me and Ron, did you act too?
I did.
Okay, well, making it
so,
clean.
Yeah, we're all the drama in our group now. Yep.
So very cool. And so if people need to take a quick break or whatever and go away, get some coffee, water, it's my rule that typically I don't do anything alcoholic until past noon. So it's still too early for me on that front. But
well, Raul, 3 minutes by the time you make the drink and everything.
I know.
It is Derby Day for sports people, so
Indeed.
It is customary to partake.
Yes, I'm going to second that because I'm attending when we're done with the Zoom call.
Hi, ma'am.
Hi.
Yeah. So to give people an idea of our next portion for our agenda, we're going to have Ron and Naomi and Sarah and Minnie, it looks like. And so we're going to, and Greg. Sorry about that.
Some guy named Greg.
Some guy named Greg. Yeah, he's like, what is that Girl Scout cookie called? The tag along?
Oh, man.
Yeah, we often do that with some of our NFB board stuff where, if I'm on the board and Stacy's with me, I call her my tag along and vice versa, where we do that. So it is an endearing term. It's a fun term.
And I know the thing about the nickname being blind, they used to do it with meanness intended, and my nickname used to be Blind Bat.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's one that I never liked, and I tell you, I have a little what I would probably call a little PTSD over this, in that I am not a fan of the Christmas song "Do You See What I See," because kids, being kids when they didn't know any better, would sing that song, and this was when I had still some vision and was in the process of losing it, and they would sing that song.
God,
so
that
to this,
would be mean. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to this day, I don't like that song. It's probably one of my least favorites, and it's not the song's fault, but
we do have one raised hand, Aida Lopez.
Sure, go ahead, Aida.
Good morning, or what is it, near afternoon? I just wanted to say hi
12.
to everybody.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say hi to everybody and just thank everybody. So far, it's been so great. I love it. Thanks for holding and having us.
Well, we're glad you're here.
This is Sailor. I want to say thank everybody for the presentations. It's great.
Wonderful. Well, we are getting ready to start, everybody. So we're going to go ahead and move to the second portion of our presentation, and this one's called Acquired Vision Loss. And this is not when someone decides to pick up a vision loss blind card and say, I'm going to apply this for the rest of my life. But it can be that way through no fault of someone's circumstances. And so here to start this first portion of it will be none other than our president of HAVIN, Ron Graham. So Ron, it's all yours.
All right. And remind me to never schedule myself to go after Terrence again. Anyhow, those who know me know I became totally blind after a car accident, severed both my optic nerves when I was 31. And I have covered this in our panel presentation at the Insight Expo, but the big thing, as Terrence emphasized, is that acceptance. I did not want to accept it, and to this day, I still accept it for today. Would I still like to see again? You bet. I'll be 59 this summer, and I still would like to see my son and my wife. My wife says, you need to see a few other things too. You need to see how much people change. She keeps telling me about all these beautiful supermodels. She says they're bald and toothless today. Wow. But she also has pointed out some other things, how they've changed. So I'd like to see that. But there's a couple of quick things I want to talk about. I don't want to talk too long today. I want to mention, I said last time, I felt emasculated by going blind because I felt like the broken toy. I was not married at the time when I became blind. I felt like the broken toy nobody would want. I said, what woman would want me when she could have a man who could drive up, pick her up, take her out, go around the car, open her door, and come back, drive her wherever she wants to go. I felt like I couldn't offer that. And I had to realize that it's not what you can't do, it's what you can do. And it's about your abilities, not your disability, that defines you. I struggled to find that within myself at times. There was a period of really dark depression. And this was after I thought I was well on the road. This is about a year and a half into being blind. I thought I was well on the way. I was owning my own house. I started school, but boy, depression hit me. And what happened was I did not want to go on. I really wanted to kill myself. And I knew this was depression talking. The hard part was getting through the depression. I didn't go to counseling. I knew this was just something I had to get through at the time. And I occupied myself. I had a type and speak. Thank you again, Dean Blasey. And I was able to write to myself. I lost myself in writing. I wrote about my feelings. I wrote the darkness, the depression, and it was like squeezing pus out of an infected wound. I was able to push through the depression and get through, and I made myself get up. I didn't want to get up out of bed. I made myself get up. I didn't stay in bed. I didn't wallow, and I moved. I was able to push through. It's not easy. And any of you who have dealt with depression know what I'm talking about. It's that deep, dark funk that just covers you like a heavy blanket and doesn't want to let you up. And it sucks you down. And you've got to get through it. You've got to push through it. And life is worth pushing through for. There's people who believed in me and held me up when I couldn't hold myself up. All my friends, my family, there were ropes in a net that came together and held me up when I couldn't hold myself up. I said, they are my safety net. Just like a tightrope walker that falls, a safety net holds them up until they can get up on their own again. And the other thing I want to add is I had to learn to trust myself. I had to learn to trust what I was hearing. I had to learn to trust in my other senses, my smell, my taste, my touch, and register these things as to what they meant to me. And I think about it almost every day. I pour coffee in my cup. I'm listening as it rises, and I stop without overflowing my cup. I don't need a level, measure, sensor. I don't need to stick my finger in there. I can hear it because I trust in what I'm hearing. This is just an acquired thing, but you have to learn to believe in yourself and appreciate what you're taking in. I won't go on. We've got a lot of other people that are here today to speak as well. I'm here for you. You can write to me through the HAVIN email, or you can write to me on my own email, rongram80@gmail.com. I will be happy to reply to, talk to anybody. I'm here for you. And I'm glad to see some of my friends here. Alexis, nice to see you join us today. That's pretty awesome. So if there's any questions, I'm open. I'm an open book. There's no dumb questions.
All right, so go ahead and raise your hand, or you can put it in the chat. Chris, I haven't checked with you in a while. Do we have any questions in the chat? Oh, and it looks like Karen has a question for you.
I'm not seeing them, but that's not to say that there's not. For some reason, it's showing empty.
All right.
Okay, no problem. Karen, you have a question for Ron?
Okay, yeah, it's not a question, but you made a comment, Ron, and you have a way of catching me at things anyhow. There's no reason for me to stick my finger in my cup other than I've been taught to do that. So I will break that habit because I can hear it as well. I just do it because that's where I was trained.
Well, when I went to Chris Cole, they taught me 5 different ways to label canned goods. And my question was, but which one's the right way? And here's their answer. And it's the best answer I've ever had to pass on. Which way works best for you? You don't have to change because Ron said this. It works great for me. If it works for you, you do that. And, gosh, if I could give you the best little piece of advice in a nutshell, that's it. How does that work for you?
Okay. And you've done it before. I just want you to know that I just never thought about using my ears. Not like I can't hear it, but never thought about it.
Yep.
You know what, Ron, that's a very valid point. With listening, and especially with pouring, because sometimes, depending on what you're doing, you don't want to get your fingers dirty because you might have to go touch something else, and now you got to go wash your hands and stuff. So that's a great point.
Not only that, but if you're pouring, let's say, a drink for a guest or a friend, that wouldn't be socially appropriate. Real quick, as a technology person, I sometimes say that I need some training. So the reason that Chris has not seen any chats is because chats were not allowed. So yours truly here locks down the Zoom rooms for safety purposes as a general rule. So I have opened the chat up. So now people can chat. We would ask that if you do have any chat questions and you haven't been able to put your questions in the chat, now you should be able to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Next one. Can one of you guys just have a quick look and see? I posted a test chat in there. Just see if you can see it.
It went through.
Okay, perfect.
Sure did.
All right, so our next question will be from Alyssa Tarver. Go ahead, Ms. Tarver.
Alyssa. What's up, genius? Talk to me.
You got Hi, I hope y'all can hear me.
There you go.
Sure y'all can hear me?
Yep.
So you mentioned about you having depression and how you wanted to end your life.
I did.
Did you look back and realize what am I thinking? And would you recommend someone who has depression and other issues like me to write on a journal, write it down, or how did you manage your, I don't know.
Well, if I'm like this, I think we all have our ways of managing coping, that we all have a personal best coping strategy. For me, that was it. And for you, if it's writing it down, if it's talking to someone, if you have a trusted friend to talk through your emotions, if it's, I know one friend, she loses herself in her piano when depression hits her. So it's just a matter of what works best for you. For me, writing about it, very therapeutic. I would highly recommend it. If you haven't tried it, do that. Work through depression. Counseling is great. My master's is in clinical psychology. I would encourage counseling. And depression is a chemical imbalance in the brain. It's antidepressants are good medicine. So I would encourage you find what the balance that works for you.
Star Trek was it for me. That was mine. Star Trek. And
good therapy.
So yeah, exactly. We will have time for one more question. I believe we have one hand raised, and then we're going to switch over to Naomi. So if Naomi, if you want to go ahead and get ready, we're going to do one more question, and then it'll be you.
All right, and Mr. Crawford, Max Crawford.
Max.
Oh, hi everybody. I just want to say you're doing a good seminar, and you might have answered this question. I don't know if it's obvious, but I wanted to know, how long did you struggle with your depression for?
Boy, I wish I had a firm answer. I didn't write down the dates or anything.
No, I know.
It was for a period of weeks.
Oh wow.
It was bad, and major depression does really hit hard. It wasn't just feeling sad. I mean, it's the whole messing with your sleep, messing with your eating habits, not wanting to shower. Every checklist on every item on the checklist for depression, I was hitting them.
Wow.
So when I look back, I could see that now.
And how did it take, like, so it might have been a period of weeks. I would suppose that it took time for the depression to lift, even when you were doing everything. I bet it took a while, and it would have been slow to leave.
Yes, it is. And I had a very involved family, even though I was living on my own. They checked in. My dad came over, and he pushed me. Not physically, but emotionally. He challenged me. So
good stuff. Good stuff.
And that helps.
And if I can, just really quick before we go on, because we are in a trying time, guys. Statistics show that this is like the highest point of depression in history, and also suicidal attempts. So I would encourage you guys that if you are feeling depressed or you feel like you need to talk to someone, we at HAVIN, we will try our best to help you out. I dealt with it a little bit earlier this year, and I thank Ron, for his experience, because he and I were able to talk through some things, and it kept me off that taken out. So please, on behalf of HAVIN and everyone, if you feel like you need someone to talk to, please do not be afraid to seek help. That's the hardest thing with going to depression and suicide thoughts, is that, it's sometimes we feel like we're alone and we can't talk to anybody. There's always somebody out there to talk to. But please, before you do anything to hurt yourself, please reach out and try your best.
Yeah, sometimes just talking to someone and knowing that you're not the only blind person or low vision person or person being frustrated over things is a good thing.
Thank you.
And that's what a lot of this here today is about. It's not always just depression, but everything that we're talking about today, what we're wanting to do, we're opening up ourselves to connect, that we understand, because we're here, we've been through this, and that's what we're trying to do, is connect with one another on all this. So thank you.
All right, so we are going to turn the floor over to Naomi. And so the floor is now yours, Naomi. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. This is Naomi Panarella. Could I get, actually, Raul, can you remind me of the time that I'm allotted? I'd like to set a timer so I remain within the time frame.
That's wonderful. So right now it is 12:15 for all intents and purposes. If you are going to take, if you're good with 10 minutes, that's great. If you need to do 15, we can do that as well. So we'll leave that open for you to decide.
I'm going to set a timer for 10.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, so there we go. Okay, good morning, good afternoon. Actually, technically, I should be saying, for those of you that have some vision and you can see my screen, yes, I am wearing a fascinator. for the Kentucky Derby that is happening today. I'm an avid fan of the Kentucky Derby. So yes, I am dressed in a manner of ready to party after this call. So I represent the Foundation Fighting Blindness Houston chapter. I serve as the vice president for the organization. I've been with them since 2013, which happens to also be the year that I was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa. So I guess I'm more of a rookie. As a member of HAVIN, I serve as the treasurer and sometimes social media, although we've had someone kind of take over and she's doing a phenomenal job of it. Shout out to Nellie. Let's see, some of the things that I initially faced when I learned about it, my condition, probably the most impactful was driving, which I recently participated in a conversation on a Facebook page about this. I actually used to, so let me step back a little bit. I was diagnosed in 2013. I was living in New York at the time, and there were signs that were kind of going off for me, couldn't connect the dots. Saw a doctor, related me to a specialist, had some testing done that I'd never had tested in my life. And I've always had visual issues, astigmatism, farsightedness, a lazy eye, you know, smorgasbord of stuff. Took this test. I quote unquote failed it, was asked to take the test again, quote unquote failed it, had some more intensive studies done in which I was told that I had retinitis pigmentosa, moved back to Texas that same year and immediately armed myself with as much knowledge and education as I could, which was why I got so involved with FFB. I did genetic testing. I know my gene mutation. I participate in studies. I'm pretty active in my eye disease just because, you know, I want to put the Foundation Fighting Blindness out of business. So it's very important to me that there's funding for research in hopes of finding a cure for a spectrum of eye diseases. Okay, so moved back from New York to Texas. I did not use a car in New York as it made no sense to do that. So I learned how to use mass transit. I took, you know, car sharing, I walked. So when I moved to Texas, I specifically made sure that my setup was in such a way. So I live very close to my job. I'm in the inner loop of Houston, so mass transit is my best friend. And that was done intentionally so that I wouldn't have to rely on driving because I knew that I wouldn't be able to do that. I did attempt to a couple of times, but I got in a tiny little fender bender. No one was injured, none of the vehicles were damaged, but for me, I took that as a sign of, okay, it's probably time to turn in the keys. And that's okay. You'll figure out a way to get around it. I'm a very determined person. So if there's a roadblock in my way, I'm gonna figure out how to get around it. And so for probably the past 7 or 8 years, I have not driven, which I actually find wonderful because driving in Houston it can be scary. So I like not having a car note and paying insurance and maintaining a vehicle. I find it to be a blessing, actually. So I do work as an executive assistant. I've been doing that pretty much all my life, well, probably for the last 10 plus years. Probably the last few years at my last employer, I did reveal that I had some visual impairments, but nothing that would impede my work on a day-to-day basis. They asked if if there was anything they needed to do for me. And I said, not really, I do have a lot of vision, but there would be moments where I needed to get up from my desk and walk to the kitchen. And as Terrence mentioned, the whole metaphor of seeing a dime fall in the distance, but missing the big elephant in front of you, I ran into a lot of that. And every time it happened, that was a moment for me to say, do I not say anything or do I say something? And I thought, well, I can't keep going on like this. So I'm just going to start telling people, which I did. And I've been more comfortable with sharing that to the point that if I go into a store by myself, and there's usually, you know, the attendants at the front that'll ask if you need any help. And I say, absolutely, I'm visually impaired. This is what I'm looking for. Can you help get me to that section? Or can you help guide me to that? And people fall over themselves to want to help you. So when you have enough responses like that from the public, it just kind of becomes very empowering, or at least it did for me. So I use that and I go with it. I am a lot more confident in sharing that I have a visual impairment with people. I recently started white cane training in the fall of last year. Yes, in the middle of a pandemic. Everything was virtual. I did receive a cane for free. His name is Willie. I haven't actually gone out in public with him, but I do practice in my home the exercises that I was taught by my trainer. So those are kind of things that I faced initially. And as far as my support system goes, FFB was a big part of it, you know, just trying to understand what I had, how can I educate myself with what I have, really take a role. And like I said, I became the vice president for our chapter here in Houston, and then learned about HAVIN because Ron, our president of HAVIN, was actually the person that kind of gave me the initial numbers and contacts of people to get a case manager to start helping me with O&M training. So shout out to Ron for that, because had he not mentioned that to me, I would not have had the training that I've had thus far. And yes, it can be challenging to navigate through that system. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm a very determined individual. And so I just stayed on top of things. And I think maybe because I'm just an admin and I do that every day, you know, sort of herding cats, if you will, it bleeds into my personal life. So I'm a very determined individual. My best friend, she is truly a blessing. I'm going to try not to get emotional, but she's been really great with helping me with a lot of things. And she understands it. Like I said, as I share with people my story, it makes me feel that much more confident in telling that story. And, you know, people will empathize with you. They truly want to help you. I think we're very fortunate, most individuals on this call that do live in Houston, that we live in such a charitable city. There's a lot of really generous and giving people here. And I think that also sort of helps that when you have a visual impairment and you need to share that with people, it's okay. It's 100% okay to share. So yeah, I guess that's it. Do we want to do questions if anyone has any? If not, it's nice meeting everybody.
Definitely do questions. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for that. That's wonderful. And I've got to learn. That's one thing about this is I'm getting a chance to learn about my fellow HAVIN folks that I've been working with for a few years. So this is enlightening for me as well.
All right, so raise your hands if you have any questions. Ned, your first one up. Ned, if you go ahead and unmute yourself so you can ask your question.
You should be able to unmute
Okay,
yourself,
can you hear me
Ned.
now?
You are coming through loud and clear.
Yeah, Naomi, thank you for your story. I too have RP. And my question is, you mentioned gene study. What gene study, what does that consist of?
So basically, I haven't quite made it to an official one, because what happens is I'm a part of an organization that, and it's not FFB, it's a different group, and they will send me potential studies. So initially there is a questionnaire that has to be completed, and then based on those responses, will then take you to the next step in that study. And so far I haven't met any of the qualifications, but they do exist and they are out there. But I specifically don't have one that I could share with you. I wish I could.
Right. Well, the reason I ask is because I had my DNA tested as well, and they could not determine my gene mutation. So I'm still unknown in terms of what my gene mutation is for my RP.
Okay. Are you here in Houston now?
No, I'm in Kyle, Texas. but my doctor suggested that I have my blood stored for future research so that somewhere down the line they might discover my mutation. And but I've not done that yet. I've not stored my blood for future research.
Gotcha. So, okay, so a little bit of information on that. When I was diagnosed in New York, I was told like, hey, first thing, let's get a gene study. Let's test your family. Let's see where this is, deriving from. And I did. I was able to track down which side of my family and which parent carried the gene. But it was against a very small gene panel at the time. And so FFB offered a gene study, I want to say 2 years ago, for free. It was through Baylor College of Medicine. And it was a much bigger gene panel that they were able to do the testing against. And that's how I found out 100% specific my gene type mutation. I can share that information if you'd like me to.
Yes, I would like that.
Okay.
Because my doctor here in Austin gave me some doctors' names in Houston to contact.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
All right. Any other questions for Naomi?
And how's our chat doing, Chris? I saw a few messages there. Do we have any questions?
It's not questions. It's more just thanking you for sharing your story. And it's from Brenda.
Oh, thanks, Brenda. Happy to share.
Wonderful. So we have time for a couple questions. We're doing good with time, and we're going to have Sarah Freeman-Smith next. And so we'll have time for maybe one or two more questions if we have some. And if not, we will move on with Sarah. So
look like we don't have any hands. Anyone got any hands going once? Going twice?
Could I just say one last thing before I have to stop
Sure.
talking? I just want to let everybody know that I'm so grateful that we have this group and we all get to share our stories. And I know sometimes depression can be a tremendous part of this, but there is a flip side to that. And there is a way to see, quote unquote, see things in a different light. I always try to choose the brighter side, if you will. And if anyone ever just wants to reach out to me and needs to chat or share or vent, I'm more than happy to be here to listen.
Just make sure you don't disturb her during the Houston Rockets time. No, just kidding. Yes.
Thank you, Naomi. And I just want to say, you're beautiful. Thank you for sharing your heart like you have. That was awesome.
Thank you, Ron.
Great, thank you. All right, moving on, we have Sarah Freeman-Smith. And so, Sarah, same thing. If you need a timer person, or if not, a gentle push when it's time, let's go ahead and take about 10 or 15 minutes. The floor is yours.
Okay, great. Can you hear me?
You're coming through loud and clear, yes.
Great. Well, I am a talker. I think I came in this world talking and will probably go out. So do me a favor and give me a little nudge about 2 minutes in order to wrap up if I've not done so. Okay.
The funny thing is I was joking before the meeting about shouting out green, yellow, red like we do in Toastmasters. So, but yes, I'll be happy to give you a
Well, then if
nudge.
you give me yellow, I know. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Take it away.
Fantastic. Great. Hello to everyone. And again, thank each and every one of you for sharing with us one of your most precious assets, and that's your time. And we are very, very excited that you came in and hope that you obviously can be blessed with us sharing our stories. As for me, I am someone who was sighted up until mid-life and experienced just a gradual vision loss. And so for me, I kind of fall right in the middle, as well as Terrence and several others have spoken about, where at this juncture in my life, because I've had vision and I'm not totally blind, I'm considered low vision, but I'm not blind enough to see things. But then when I'm in the sighted community, I definitely can't see enough to feel comfortable being in the sighted community. So for me, what happened with my condition is I just started noticing I couldn't read signs when I was driving, large signage and things of that nature. And always, I did wear glasses and contacts. So went to the optometrist. He tested me and said, Sarah, I saw you just 8 months ago, but there's been a gradual loss of vision. And it's concerning because you've not had a traumatic accident or anything, or any type of diseases of that nature. So went to the University of Houston's ophthalmology center and experienced quite a bit of tests, but no answers. So, and it took almost 6 years before I got a final diagnosis. And so here you have someone who my entire career was in human resources, and specifically in human resources with recruiting. So it involved always people, the interaction. Recruiting is about finding, attracting, and recruiting and hiring people into an organization. And so obviously the visual aspects was very important. So it took about 6 years, and it was determined, what my condition was. But during that time, each and every year I would go for tests, and my vision was diminishing little by little. And they were going, we don't know how to stop this train wreck. We wish we had an answer for you. So I was going through all of this dilemma as I am still working professionally and doing things, in my family life, of 3 questions, what caused or what's causing this vision loss? Most importantly, can we ultimately stop it? And obviously, can I get it restored back to where I was? So when I finally got an answer about 6 or 7 years after going through so many series of evasive tests and things, and positive news, I was healthy. Nothing came out alarming. So what was determined is I have an autoimmune condition. Specifically, I have autoimmune retinopathy, where my good cells attack a portion of your body or an organ, and in this instance, my retina, and it began to attack it, and there is nothing that we can do to stop it, and it will ultimately lead to blindness. So it is a genetic condition, unfortunately, and after researching as much as I could in my family tree, couldn't figure out where I got it, but obviously in some generations past, it was present. So those 3 questions were answered for me. First of all, it was genetic, and so it was nothing that I could do to change. So the second question was, can we stop it? And that answer was no. And thirdly, can I get it restored back? That answer was no, nor could I take something that obviously could mitigate or minimize that. So at that juncture, being in the professional side as well as on my personal side, those were the 2 things that it obviously significantly impacted me, and it caused me to race through my brain. Now what? And of course, as some of the other presenters have mentioned and even talked about, you go through stages of grief. I mean, this is like a loss of a family member. And I had my time of my pity party, but more importantly, I wanted to find out, okay, Sarah, now that you can't fix this with this magic wand, what are you going to do about it? So fortunately, I still had enough vision working in the professional arena that I could get by with it, in other words, because then there was the fact of, how do I tell people that I really can't see them and I'm faking this, people waving, hey, why didn't you speak to me? Oh, girl, I could not see, I couldn't tell, you make all kinds of excuses. So ultimately I had to decide, okay, I'm either going to have to face this head on and deal with it, or I am going to obviously just kind of curl up in a couch somewhere and get a bag of, my Ritz crackers and a glass of Merlot and the Lifetime channel and, live depressively happily ever after. And that obviously was not an option. So for me, I had to determine, okay, now that I'm in this situation, what am I going to do? And I think one of my best messages to anyone is, when you are faced with vision loss, and especially the uncertainty as it continues to diminish, is that you have to face change. You really, really have to embrace and accept change. You either say, I want it to be like it used to be and stick around, or you have to face, it's not going to be the same. And I have to change, and I have to do what I need to do to embrace this in order to survive. So there's a fantastic book. I recommend people to read it if you've never. It's a real short book. It's called Who Moved My Cheese by Dr. Spencer Johnson. And it just talks about how people accept and embrace change. And the most successful people are the ones who embrace it and say, okay, this is the way we're going to go. You're going to change the rules of the game. Well, then, okay, I have to adapt. So for me, on the professional side, how it impacted me before, I was using Microsoft's, magnification tools and lowering resolutions and things of that nature. This was before I learned about screen readers. But then I still was having problems going to meetings. I can remember going to work early in the morning, like 6:30. First of all, because I was driving. That was my biggest challenge. Oh my God, I will not be able to drive. It was like you were taking every limb that I had and, destroying me. But getting to work early enough because I didn't want to drive in the sun because I couldn't see, because it affected my vision. My central vision is lost. I have no color discernment, as well as my peripheral vision is extremely low. So I'd get to work, still had some vision, early enough so the sun's not in my eyes. But then I had appointments where I had to meet my managers. So for me, I needed to get there early so I could walk down the halls and feel along the hallways the room numbers. And I had to count the rooms in order to know which office I was going to for my 2:00 meeting, so that they would not see this lady walking along the wall feeling the number impressions, because I didn't read Braille. So these are things that I was doing. I was trying to work around. So I was introduced, thank God, by my physicians to vocational rehab services. So that was resolved a lot of my professional work around issues. So I have to commend and state that at that time it was DARS, and I had a wonderful counselor who recommended things to me that I somewhat rejected initially, but realized later I didn't need to use them. So,
and a friendly yellow card to you, Sarah.
Okay, great. The second aspect is on the social side. Okay, so I resolved workarounds and using screen readers and all the assistive technology, but then you had the social side. And that's where I became introduced or also became involved with iBug, which is Eye Blind Users Group. And that was taking that simple iPhone, which I thought was a phone, and it is really a computer that was portable enough for me to put in my pocket that I could use and open up my social world. Not only using that to be portable and to work through my social interaction, but also on the social side, learning about going to movies with audio description, and going to the theater with audio description, and going to restaurants and reading your menus and things of that nature. So those were the aspects that were opened up to me. And so I cannot stress the importance of getting a good, solid support group. And that is both being around others who are visually impaired and blind, that they can share their ins and outs, as well as also stressing, like Naomi stated before, being willing to ask for help and accepting that help, and learning how to embrace change. And the biggest question I have to tell people as I continue to lose my vision is, am I willing to work harder to do something that I used to do with ease? If that answer is yes, then you can absolutely be successful. It may take you a little bit longer, but you can achieve it. So let's open it up for some questions.
That's wonderful. All
right.
right.
Great
Thank
job,
you for that,
Sarah.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Any questions for Sarah? Raise your hands. Do we have anything in the chat?
Not questions specifically. We do have a thank you, Naomi, for sharing your story. My sincere condolences to Terrence and his family.
And share.
There's a couple more. Just one moment, please.
And while he's
I love
reading
it.
those, I wanted to
I love it.
make mention.
love
Yeah,
it.
I love that Lifetime line.
That's exactly what I was just going to
Oh,
read.
thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah, I just-
On there with a box of tissues.
that'll depress you whether you're blind or not. I tell you,
Yeah.
just Stacy and I subscribed to the Amazon through Prime Video. It had a Lifetime movie thing for like $5 a month, and we tried it out for a month, and I swear all the movies were about the same thing. You know,
It was less, it was actually less than a month.
I know.
I think
Yeah,
we
so-
watched one show and it was like, no.
the rest of the theme, it was like you just change the name, change the genders, change the location, and you still have the same story.
So Peter says, Los, LOL, so relatable, trying to do things cited. Well, Peter, we'll talk later.
Oh, yeah.
Do we still need?
Oh, sorry, we got one more here.
Oh, okay.
Can you talk a little more about, I can't understand what this is saying. It says, I think it was the
iBug.
Yeah.
Oh, talk a little bit more about iBug?
Yeah.
Yes, iBug is a nonprofit organization that was founded, as a matter of fact, getting ready to celebrate our 10th anniversary this month in a couple of weeks. And it was founded by some individuals here in Houston. Michael McCullough is the founder of a group of people who had iPhones and learned about the wonderful thing that Steve Jobs did with accessibility tools. But it wasn't just about using the phone with voiceover and the different things, but it also was social interaction and immersion and training. And so if you'd like to learn, I could spend probably an hour telling you about the wonderful things about iBug, but if you go to HAVIN's website or even to our direct website, ibugtoday.org, it talks about all the things that we offer individuals that are blind and visually impaired that is free. I mean, it's a vast array, from going to movies, offering mentorship programs, training, social interaction. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, we can't do those sorts of things now, but we will get back to doing it once, we are opening up. But it's a great organization where you can learn from so many people around the world. It started in Houston, but it has expanded, and we have people that dial in and attend our meetings all over. So that's iBug Today.
I'd like to add a little footnote to that. Michael was one of the original founders of HAVIN with myself and Minnie. And our first Insight Expo, his workshop on the newly accessible iPhone was the most popular standing room only workshop we had. He presented it twice, filled the room to capacity. And I'd like to say it was because I said, Michael, you need to do something about this. But he's a bright man. He saw the need. He said, I'm going to make this happen. And he started iBug, and it's really grown into quite an organization. So my hat's off to all of you in iBug for making it what it is.
And definitely the information that is shared there, guys, if you can make it to the meetings, and because there's some great information that iPhones changes every single day. So it's new stuff that comes out. As we know, there's updates every 4 or 5 months. These guys are very good with getting this information to you. Sarah, one question for you. What days are y'all meeting? I might have missed it.
Actually, we have meetings we have a Zoom call. It's called iBuzz Conference every Monday night from 7 to 9, I believe, or 9:30. And we also have a monthly cafe, which is a deep dive training. That is the second Sunday, and a monthly meeting at the end of each month on a Saturday. And that's when we're going to celebrate our 10th anniversary. I believe that's the 24th off the top of my head, but those are primarily, and then of course we have Android calls. We don't just do training on Apple devices. We also have an Android call. We have a book club. We have a Star Trek group. It's just a vast story. And then of course, movie night. Every Friday nights, we do a feature film that's totally audio described, no visual, audio described. The discussions and the Roger Eberts of the world come out afterwards to talk about it. So many things that you can jump in on, and all on the same Zoom conference line. Just go to the website.
All right, and I posted the website on the chat for those who might
Thank
need
you.
it. Yep.
Fantastic.
And as
Okay.
always, if anyone has any other questions that we didn't have time for, if you have questions about iBug, you can email the iBug address that Sarah mentioned, but you can also email the HAVIN address, and we will forward those on to Sarah. We'll let her know about them so that she can respond to you directly if you have any other questions.
And then we still have any questions at the end, right, for the panel? Opening?
Yes, yeah, we're still going to do an open Q&A and open discussion toward the end as well. So if you're still here, please stay, because we've got door prizes. All right, so but I'll also give you a chance to ask questions of any of our panelists so far. So moving on, we have Minnie, who is going to talk about share some stuff as well. And Minnie, if you would like me to give you a friendly card, 2-minute warning, that's fine. Otherwise, the floor is yours.
Very much.
And just so you know, you're a little quiet.
Warning, because I can get a little bit wordy. I won't have to go into much discussion of my visual condition. I have retinitis pigmentosa also. The way that it was diagnosed much later in life, because I enjoyed a full life since then. I started wearing corrective lenses when I was roughly 3 or 4 years old, before I entered a public school system. And for those of you, just to date myself even more, I was constantly teased because the corrective lenses that they gave me were super thick. And when sodas used to come in glass bottles, they had a very thick bottom to the bottle. And the kids would always tease me and say that my glasses were Coke bottle glasses. So I got a strong, I guess, I just learned not to let these things bother me. So they would tease me. I continued on in my life. Of course, RP had not been diagnosed at that point. I went to college, my undergrad school in Ohio, and I just remember going. I think it was in my sophomore year that I went home for Christmas vacation, and my ophthalmologist told me that I would be able to wear contact lenses. Oh my God. When that occurred, I came back to college not wearing those thick lens glasses, but wearing my contact lens. And you would think that these people had never seen me before. They just, oh, that's you, Minnie. Did you suddenly become able to see? And then I just shared with them that I was wearing contact lenses. Well, things continued to evolve. As after I graduated from college, uh, my degree, my undergrad degree was in chemistry, because I was always interested in the sciences. And I got a job, my first job, working at a chemical facility. I was the first female that they hired in this environment, so I had to do things right. Uh, and I was aggressively promoted within the organization. And after a number of years there, I too was transferred to New York. So that's when I really found out what the name of my condition was. I'd never heard of this big mouthful word, retinitis pigmentosa. What are they talking about? Um, I could tell that my vision was getting worse, but I just thought that it was because I was getting older. Uh, when I went to one ophthalmologist, it was really funny, because it seems like retinitis pigmentosa must be quite unusual or something, because this guy was so excited after he did a visual examination. He said, oh, I've seen this before, but I don't know what it is. And then he told me to go to, I think it was NYU, where they started performing a number of tests that had never occurred. And it was, the one that really I remember was putting these devices over the pupils of my eye, and then putting me in a darkened room, a completely dark room. And then it was a strobe light show. These lights just started flashing, and
Yes.
it was crazy. It was like, damn, they've never done this
Oh
before.
my goodness.
And immediately after they completed the test, they were able to tell me that, yes, you do have retinitis pigmentosa. Okay, that was a big word for me, but I then, based on my background, did some research, and I made the mistake of going to my managers, because I was a technical development manager, and my responsibility was to go any place in the U.S. or Canada or the world in some instances, and I would just fly in and rent a car and get on the road and go where I needed to go. But my company realized that I was a liability working in a capacity such as that. And needless to say, I was downsized um, when the next need to cut the downsized people. But I had worked for the company for over 20 years. So that just lets you know. So I stayed in New York probably for another year and realized this is not the place to be blind, because people aren't as engaging as far as trying to assist. I really was afraid that I would be mugged or something like that. All of the horror stories of New York started repeating itself in my mind. So I returned to Houston, and I was just completely in the dark, so to speak. I was still driving, which amazes me that I was able to drive. I knew that I had difficulty at night, so I minimized the amount of driving that I did at night. But when I came back and I went to an ophthalmologist here in Houston, and they confirmed that I did have retinitis pigmentosa and my field of vision was less than 10 degrees. Oh, I was in a major depression for a period of time. And some friends of mine introduced me to the first blind person I had met. I mean, when you think about it, there are no blind people in your public school system. There were no blind people in college. I didn't know if there were any blind people at the church that I attended, because they were probably using sighted guide. I never knew of another blind person. And I when I met this person, she introduced me to DARS. I'd never heard of DARS, and we just kind of hit it off. And there was an event that DARS had scheduled, a seminar where a number of blind people got together in the Houston area, and I was just amazed at, boy, it's this many blind people. And I learned about Chris Cole. Y'all have heard of that from several other presenters. I went to Chris Cole in Austin, and uh, boy, that's when they taught me that you can be blind and still be successful, Minnie. So they taught me all the cane traveling, daily living skills, learning to use the various technologies that are available, and I came back feeling just that much better. But still, there were no other blind people out there. Oh, well, Gail and I decided we were going to get together and form a support group, because there had to be other blind people. And that's when we formed VIA, or the Visually Impaired Advocates. Um, we used to meet on a regular basis, on a routine basis, pre-pandemic, and we would share experiences, resources, just basic information. We were also a very active group, because we would get a bus and go on various trips, and you'd be amazed that the people would look at us like we had just landed from Mars or something, because they'd never seen this many people with white canes. And we weren't banging over things, knocking stuff over and everything like that. And I just had to tell people several times, this white cane is that's my eyes, okay? I don't need your help, but thank you for offering. Um, so we since the pandemic, we've not been able to meet, but we do have a virtual um, meeting once a month, uh, and it's usually the second Tuesday in the month. The information is sent out, and we can also tell you that if you're interested in more things associated with the organization, our website is viadvocates.org, and we publish this newsletter. It's called Scoop from the Goop, the group, excuse me, Scoop. And we put out information not only regarding our group, VIA, but also regarding other blind activities, such as this event. I'm sure Ron published that in the Scoop, or submitted that for the Scoop. And this is the kind of information and try to interaction that we continue to do. And I will complete this by saying the way that HAVIN was started, as Ron had mentioned earlier, it was started at an event that VIA had sponsored. We planned a talent show, and we had this facility, and everybody that wanted to participate in the talent show came, competed against one another. And after the talent show, and we had awarded the winners their prizes, etc., we had a dinner planned and sat down, and Ron and Michael and I were sitting together, and they were saying, boy, we need to have more events such as this. And we just started talking, and I said, well, we're all in different silos, because they started talking about the individual groups that they were participating in. Ron was talking about VIPSET, and I'd never heard of VIPSET. Quite frankly, there were, other than the Lighthouse for the Blind and the national organizations, I didn't know of any local organization. So we sat together and brainstormed and came up with HAVIN, and I'm glad to be a part of it. So that's basically, and right now, you've heard several people talk about depression. I use Ron as my therapist, but my vision is continuing to deteriorate, and it's noticeable because things that I used to do and take for granted, like going up and down stairs, I have fallen down the stairs on multiple occasions, so it's gotten worse. And I just, I'm frightened, but I know that I'm going to survive. And I just have to deal with the depression when it comes. And it's continuing to deteriorate because now one eye is seeing differently than the other, and I'll deal with it. Are there any questions?
All
All
right. Any
right. So,
question for Minnie? Raise your hands, or you can put in the chat.
I will speak up. Minnie and I, we had a good talk this week, and when we talk, we always have good talks, good open conversation. And Minnie told me, says, Ron, this degenerative disease is just degenerating too quickly for me lately. And I'm like, that's exactly what you need to share when we share. I said, because that right there, that making that connection, that's what people need to hear. That we're all confident, competent, blind people. We all do our own things, but we're human too. We deal with this every day, just like everybody else here. And thank you for sharing that, Minnie.
Yes,
Definitely.
thank you, Minnie. I think it's so super cool that your attitude is just to keep moving forward. I love it.
Definitely.
Hey guys, we got a chat question from Peter McKenzie. It looks like it is a general question about if anybody has had any kind of thing that's helped with improvement of vision. Peter, if you want to clarify, you can press Alt-A and speak into the microphone, but that's what it reads here.
Yeah, like basically, like if your condition was caused by something else, and has anyone been able to like clarify their actual condition because of the initial condition? Because like my condition is is caused by something that I can't, like nobody knows, like it's undefined, and it's like something that just contributed to my blindness.
This is Stacy. I can answer that real fast. As I mentioned earlier, my eye condition is a genetic condition that I inherited from my biological father's side of the family. One thing that I got to do twice, and I would encourage anybody that may have a genetic eye condition to consider doing, is undergo genetic counseling. Richard Lewis is one of the top ocular geneticists in Houston with Baylor College of Medicine. I was fortunate to be able to see him twice, and what was really cool, because biology was one of my real strong areas, I was able to go in and have a conversation with him, and he was pretty impressed that here this, junior in high school, I saw him in 6th grade, and then in high school came in and I was talking to him about autosomal recessive and dominance and all of this stuff. So if you're able to do that, genetic counseling is a great way to find out information.
Yeah, I was just saying, it's like I went to like 7 or 8 different second opinions, and it's like I didn't know what was going on until like they didn't want to examine me until they found out what was actually going on. But then what was actually going on was connected to my blindness, and when they actually found out, it was too late. So I was just like, okay,
Well,
yeah.
Peter, what you shared about sarcoidosis, I've put you in touch with my friend Keith also on Facebook Messenger, and I'll let y'all take the conversation from there, because that's a rare disease that I only know the two of you who have ever mentioned that as the cause of your blindness.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
So Keith is really dynamic. I've actually met him in person. He's not here in Houston, but he's in Central Texas, and he's a good guy. He's down to earth, and oh man, you talk about someone that shares their heart. He'll sure share his with you. So,
all right, that's cool.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter.
Wonderful. All right, we have time for one more question, if there is one, and then we're going to turn it over to Greg, who is our last but not least panelist.
Chat's clear.
No hands raised, so that means it's on me.
It's all you, Greg.
All right. So, as everyone said again, thank you guys for taking out of your busy schedule on a Saturday to be here with us. We know you could be anywhere else, but we're glad that you decided to join us today. And from working with the chats and the hands and stuff, it's been a constant stream. So I'm guessing that you guys has been getting great information, and hopefully I can continue that here. So for me, it's kind of funny to listen to all the stories that has been told, because every last person that has told the story today, I've gone through and been like, hey, that was me. That was me. That was me. So, and at different aspects of our lives. So that's the point that's so important. For myself, I have something called Steven Johnson syndrome. What Steven Johnson syndrome is you have to have some kind of ailment. My ailment was I was having what they call a lymph seizure, which is a seizure that happens one time in your entire life. But I had a seizure for 27 hours straight, and what it is they medicate you to try to control what that ailment is. Now, this happened in 1987. I was 3 years old. So my grandmother at the time, she was a home nurse who, we didn't go to the doctor for anything. Like, if anybody's been raised by grandma, grandpa, you guys know, like, you got to be broken something to go to the hospital. You know what I mean? So for me, because I had had this seizure for 27 hours long, my grandmother decided to rush me to the hospital. At this time, I'm growing up in Miami, Florida. And when they take me to the hospital, they say, well, you're having a limb seizure. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you an adult dosage of penicillin. Unfortunately for me, they didn't know that I was allergic to it. And so I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Bubble Boy, but that became my life. As a 3-year-old, the medicine that they had given me had completely burnt me from the inside out. And to the point where I had lost all my skin, all my hair, everything. And so for a 3-year-old, if anyone that has kids or been around kids, you know, the hardest thing to do is keep a kid still. Well, for me, because I was living inside of a bubble, because they had to feed me through tubes and all the kind of stuff like that, I couldn't get up and move around like the typical 3-year-old. Run, jump, climb into things, you know, anything that 3-year-old would do, get into trouble, as they say, the terrible 2 to 4. So I literally went in the hospital at 3 and I came out 2 months from being 5. The first day I came home, well, before that, when during this time for 10 months, I lived in a bubble. My family could not come and visit me unless they had gas masks because everything was exposed. They could see all my organs, everything. My grandmother, rest her soul, she literally the 18 months I was there, she was there every day, all day. If she was not there, she was at church. If she wasn't at church, she was there. So I became joint at the hip with my grandmother. Well, when I came home, before I had went into the hospital, you know, I was the typical kid climbing over the gate, go play with the neighbors, everything. Well, the first day I come home, my grandmother said, oh, well, I went outside to play. And the first thing I did was the last thing I did, which was climb over the gate. My grandmother says, and the story that my family always tells is that my grandmother was looking outside that window and she seen me climbing on the gate. And she always said that, you know, if I stop him now, he's always going to allow people to stop him. And so instead of her stopping me, she went ahead and let me climb over that gate. So from that point on, that was my life. Like, I always was the person who, you know, growing up, I grew up in a big family. I was maybe the 45th cousin out of maybe 100 of us. So, and that's no joke, seriously, 100 of us. So it was always some of us growing up together. My vision, when I came out, they had to put scar tissue over my eyes to make sure that my eyes didn't burst from the pressure, the medicine and everything. So I came out, I could see out of both eyes up to about 20 feet. My left was maybe to 12 feet. My right was to 20 feet. So when I came out, growing up, I always wanted to go where my cousins went because I had older cousins, I had younger cousins. I always played kickball. We ran around, played hide and go seek. That was nothing to me. The hardest adjustment for me going blind was once I got into school, because I had always been taught at home that blindness was just a crutch or an excuse that you use. So how do you decide to do it? So for me growing up, going to the park with my family and everything, that was awesome for me. Well, when I got into school, I never forget, I was in maybe the 3rd or 4th grade. I had always gone to regular school since with so many cousins. I didn't know nothing about a blind school, didn't care to know nothing about a blind school. I was not the only blind person in elementary school, but in that particular elementary school, but at the same time, I didn't care to know all of the stuff. My life was my family, you know what I mean? So in the 5th grade, I never forget this. I was going to school on South Beach, and I go, and PE came, and we went outside to go play T-ball. And so I go over, and the coach goes, no, you can't play. You can't see. And that was the first time that someone had told me that I couldn't play, I couldn't see. Because to me, the vision was never a problem. So I went home and I cried and I cried and I cried and I cried. And I didn't know what to do. So my family was like, listen, if you want to play, you could play. Now, this is the first time also that I had gone to another school that none of my family members were at. So that was another adjustment for me. So when I actually went back to school the next day, I went out to play kickball. Teacher tells me the same thing. I go home and I cry. So about the fourth day, I'm like, you know what? This ain't gonna work. So I went back to school. We were playing volleyball and the teacher said I couldn't sit down. And I was like, look, I'm not sitting down. And he goes, why not? I say, because you might feel that I can't do it, but that doesn't mean I can't do it. And he said, well, how do you know that you can do it? I say, I can show you better than I can tell you. I go out and I play kickball. For the rest of that school year, I never had a problem again with someone telling me I couldn't do something because of the fact that I refused to say that blindness was a crutch for me. So if they told me I couldn't do it, that was even more reason for me to do it. In 96, I ended up moving to Texas. So when I moved to Texas, this was like the first time that I moved to Houston, Texas. This was like the first time that I had been not only in a place where I didn't know anyone, but now you're starting from scratch. Like there's no family down the street or whatever to help you. So I went into this school terrified because I had never really had it. Even though I had went to another school in Miami, my family was still there. So being here, it was a whole new thing. This is when I found out about Region 4. I found out that you didn't have to use a braille, what was it called? A braille imprint, which if anybody knows what the braille imprint is the braille writer on top of a computer with a printer on the side of it. So imagine going to class every day with that on a cart. That was my way of going through school when I was mainstreaming. When I got to Texas, this is when I was introduced to the braille and speak and things of that nature. And I started learning about other things, but I still was that person who you couldn't tell me I couldn't do something. So my teacher, my VI teacher came to me, I was in the 7th grade, and she says, I think you should go to this school called Grady, which is a school that most blind people in Houston go to. And my dad goes, no, he's never been at a school with other people. We're not going to start him doing that with other blind people. So I stayed in mainstream. When I went to high school was those years that I started playing basketball, playing football, like competitively. What kind of showed me that I had to slow down was because I was one day in a basketball game, and kind of like Terrence was going out for an alley-oop actually. And as I went up to go for the ball actually hit me. I turned around and looked as I'm in the air and the ball hits me in the eye. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I definitely didn't see that coming. So I didn't have that. I didn't know what the problem was. Well, I was told that my vision was slowly deteriorating. So I was like, okay, well.
And we have a friendly 2-minute warning, Greg.
All right. Thank you, sir. So I ended up going in and getting a corneal transplant in my left eye. And that worked for about a month, but then it ended up failing completely. But I had ended up losing more vision. So I decided that at that point in time, I wasn't going to do anything else to my eyes. If it was meant for me to see, it would stay that way, and I kind of went through these different levels. I went to college. I did acting. I actually went to college for communication and theater with a minor in criminal justice because I wanted to be a lawyer. But I've, through my life, have experienced so much and have done so many things that I never let something be a crutch to me. Victoria and I, we started Blind Professional Network, which is that's how we're on the board for HAVIN. We do work with professionals who are blind, who either are professionals, want to be professionals, looking for a career, retired, and we discuss different aspects and challenges in life. So if you guys want to reach out to us, it is info@blindpro.net. Or you can also, through the HAVIN page, we have a link there that you can click on. So other than that, I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor for questions.
In the chat, thank God for a praying grandmother. What an amazing story.
Amen. That lady there. If it wasn't for grandma, I'd have been stopped so many times, but I always remember her teachings. So
Gotta love grandmas for those kinds of things, for sure.
yes, sir. Any other questions?
I think, and this is Raul here, I think one thing that we can certainly take away from all of our panelists.
Sorry, we got one more thing. I'm sorry. In the chat here, it says, what is the name of your organization?
It's called Blind Professional Network, short BPN. So yeah, that's the name of it. And then we also have a hand raise.
Kamini.
How do you say it? Kamini.
Hi. So Gregory, the very first time you said my name, you said it correctly, but I'm totally not fussy. You can say it however. It is absolutely great to be here, and thank you so much, Ron, for sharing this information. I'm a guest from Toronto, Canada today. I have like a question and a comment. Maybe the question could go to Stacy or any one of the speakers. Speaking about the cane, as a teenager, same kind of thing, but my thing was that I didn't want to use the cane because I'm a fast mover. I move around really fast. I had quite a bit of vision. I still mostly do, but I didn't want to draw attention to myself. And I also felt that the cane slowed me down. Did any of you find that when you first started to use the cane, you had to move a lot slower to get used to it, or it slowed you down as well?
This is Greg.
Yeah.
So my thing with growing up in school, like I said, I played basketball and football, so I was always a fast-paced person. And I always tried not to, like, to me, I thought, as others have mentioned earlier, that it kind of, you wanted to draw the attention away from it as much as possible. You didn't want anyone picking on you. So I did a lot of times, I used to run a lot. So slowing down was not an option. But what made me start using the cane more is being 6'4". You don't always see that tree limb coming. So, getting poked in the eye, walking into a stop sign, things like that, that had I been using the cane with my range and the length of the cane, I would have known that it was there before, but I wanted to count so much on the vision that I have and that I had. And so, a lot of times we want to see more than what we actually see. And that can be detrimental. As Stacy said earlier, it's better to be safe and not step off that sidewalk than trying to be cute and get hit by a car.
Definitely true.
Have you ever actually experienced where you tried to be like more sighted than you were and actually ended up in a situation where it ended up really badly?
I can tell you this, too many times for comfort. Like I say, just, always wanting, sitting there and walking down the hallway and a door opens, and it's out of your range and you walk smack dab into that door and drop everything. That's embarrassing. You know what I mean?
It is.
Walking through a courtyard and you're out there and you're talking to this pretty girl at school and you're everything, and then you're not using that cane and you step into a hole and fall flat face down in the dirt. It's things where we think of it as being a crutch to us with the cane, but it's so many things that we could avoid happening that will make us look so much worse than actually walking around with a cane.
I use my cane in such a way that a lot of time, most of the things I do require me to be escort for because of pandemic right now, and that's also the rules at my job is that prior to pandemic is the visually impaired residents have to be escorted, so do I. But I still have the cane with me because God forbid I'm running late to get to the other side. The cane will get me out the door to catch their attention. And I can at least try to make it to back to the other side. I play on two sides of Rosemont, in case you know I need to use it. But you know, and even when I go to Kroger's with mom, I have the cane with me. I don't ever need it there, but I have it. You never know what could happen.
Definitely.
And also for me with cane use, and again, also the blind people. I was going through dog guide school, and I specifically asked my instructor for a blindfold. You know what? It was not on my doctor's report, so they didn't give it to me. And man, I just struggled the rest of the way through guide dog training because they just would not do that one thing. I knew that I almost walked into a pole. By the way, it was like 5 o'clock in the evening. You know how light poles that are shiny. Well, I could see it a little bit. The sun shining back on it. The lighting would I was trying to avoid it, and I almost ran into it. And at that time, I said, Judy, I need a blindfold. So
Yeah.
to make a long story short, I use a cane just because I don't trust my own vision. It's not reliable.
That's a very good point, Karen. Very
All
good.
right, thank you for that. So just to give everybody an idea on time, we are down to 9 minutes, and so we're going to the third portion of our section, and this is general Q&A, general chit chat, general socializing, and let's if you have any questions for any of our wonderful panelists, now is the time to do that. Feel free to raise your hand and be called on. And while you're thinking about your question, you're raising your hand, I wanted to mention, I started saying this before, is that I think that one of the common things that I've heard from every one of our panelists is that you're not alone with this. So when you feel, it's very easy to feel like maybe this is only happening to you. Maybe you're the only blind or low vision person. Maybe you're the only angry person. Just know that you're not alone. And you can always, depending on your support system or how you feel about talking to others, as has been mentioned, you can always reach out to someone from the HAVIN team to chat about something. While I can't speak for everybody else, what I can say about me specifically is if you ever want to just vent about life, about people lowering expectations, about people treating you in a condescending way, feel free, shoot me an email or whatever, and we'll set up a time and chat and whatever. I have I like to say a 9-to-5 job, but sometimes it feels like a 7 to 10 job. But we'll make it happen. And the other thing, and one last thing before we turn it over, the other thing is, in addition to not being alone, that it's perfectly normal to feel angry and depressed. And those are very valid feelings. And so if there's a way for you to work through those in a safe way, by all means do so. Sometimes writing stuff down, sometimes going into a closet and screaming at the top of your lungs, whatever is going to help you do that. That's definitely certain, normal. So that's all I had to say.
Agreed. Before we turn it over to Q&A, Ron, do you want to go ahead and do the door prize now?
I think that'd be a great thing. And I also want to say thank you, Raul. You've done a great job moderating this and keeping things moving today. Fantastic. So Stacy, give me a number.
All right, so Stacy picked a number. She stepped away real quick. She picked
Alexis Reed.
Yeah, she picked the number and picked Alexis Reed.
Okay, so Alexis.
Yep, she's here.
All right, so congratulations, Alexis. And we will I will get with you on this gift card that's being donated by the Foundation Fighting Blindness. So,
Alexis, you're there? And of course, my Alexa answer, but
mine did too. So,
right. So, any question for any of the panels? Anybody that has talked today?
Anybody got something you want to share?
This is Alexis. I'm sorry. Did somebody ask me a question?
You won the door prize, Sherlock.
What's the door prize?
You've got a $25 Amazon gift card.
Ah, thank you.
How's that work for you?
That works great.
Awesome. Congratulations. Thanks for being here today.
And she's been here the whole time, so thank you for all.
She's joining us from Florida. So,
all right, my home state. Way to go, Florida.
There you go.
Any questions for the panel? Anything in the chat? Comments, questions?
Hey guys, I just want to mention too, it's Chris from Canada.
Yep.
I know I've said it again, time and time, but I'll say it again. Wednesday nights, we have a chat, open chat night. Sometimes we have some stuff like coming up. We have a sports series that starts in May. We would love to have more Texas presence at our open chat nights because you guys offer so much insight into things that
so Chris,
different voices are always great.
Tell us, who is we?
So it's run by myself and Ken Rojas from the Canadian Council of the Blind, Toronto Visionaries chapter. Now it runs from 6 to 8 Central Time. I'll jump back to your time here, or 7 to 9 Eastern. And it's Wednesday evenings. And like I said, sometimes it's just chats. Other times we have speakers and programs. So starting the 12th of May, we have a sports series kicking off with fishing and tandem biking. So I could give Ron the information and you guys can let us know if you'd like to come, and we'd love to have you join us.
Send it to me. Well, I'll be passing that on.
All right, and Nisha's iPhone has the hand raised. Nisha, if you go ahead and come off of mute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
ma'am.
Awesome. Canada is strong today in this in this Zoom call. I'm also from Toronto, Canada.
Excellent.
So my question is, I've heard the common theme from a couple of the panelists about, for example, with Terrence and Greg being involved in sports, and then suddenly having the realization that, things are getting a little bit more difficult and maybe you can't take part in this activity, or maybe you did after, some training. So I guess my question is, how do you go about physically and mentally transitioning from doing the things that you really enjoy doing to maybe, I'm not sure, not being able to do them?
This is Stacy, and I will take that. So there are organizations for people who like to do sports. The United States Association of Blind Athletes, there's a lot of opportunities there. All kinds of sports, track and field, goalball is very popular, swimming, baseball is also a popular sport. My recommendation is, and I always tell people that blind people and low vision people are great resources. But if it's something that you really want to do yourself, you don't necessarily have to. If it's something that you don't think blind people can do, or you're not sure who to ask, never be afraid to be the first at something, because you could be paving the way for other people.
And I believe that Greg is a beat baseball player, right? Right, Greg?
I am. And we actually did a Zoom call before. We actually still have it up. I believe so, right? The video on YouTube page that has like the different sports that are out there. The transition aspect of it is that because I was so competitive and playing sports that I had to find something. I did do track. I did adjust like to some things, but once I found beat baseball, man, a whole new world opened up. And so it's so much out there. The best part about today, maybe that's different from back then, is social media. Everything is on the internet. So anything that you're interested in, you want to see if it's something out there, you could definitely look it up. And then we're also for those of us that like playing football, basketball, we're working on a couple of things to bring those out in the next couple of years. And like they have blind hockey. So there's so much out there. And especially with Canada, we have a beat ball team for Canada. There's a blind hockey team for Canada as well. So a lot of these sports are there. It's just a point of actually looking them up and getting them. And if you want, I could send out some links to different things to Ron. That way we can get it out to you guys for these different leagues.
Just to let you guys know a little bit about up here, we do have the Ontario Blind Sports Association that has a lot of the competitive sports involved. There's the Ice Owls, which is in Toronto, the blind hockey team. Like I said, come on out to our sports series starting May 12th, fishing, tandem biking, sailing, you name it. I'm trying to get in as many people as we can. So look out for that as well.
And Nisha, your question was about doing the things you love to do, or moving on. Part of this is figuring out, is this something you can still do? And if there's nobody doing it, if you can figure out a way to do it, that's up to you. And be determined. There's a friend of mine I know on Facebook, and I've talked to on the phone several times. He's a blind race car driver. He was a race car driver before, and that's how he was blinded in a car accident he had on the racetrack. And he's working with the NFB now to set the land speed record. He's already the fastest blind man ever for his modified Corvette, and he's a machinist. He's doing a lot of this work himself. He's got a team with him that helps him on this. So part of this is sometimes figuring out how to do what you love to do. If you were a brain surgeon before, that may not be something that you can do now, but if there's something related in the field, you can still do that. So,
and even then, that's going to be changing soon. I would expect.
Yeah. So,
and it's it's a great plug, because just like I have a friend who was a nurse for 20 something years, and she went blind. Now she is a teacher for nursing. So she's still in nursing. She still got her degree. So anytime there's something wrong with me, I'll call her before I call anybody else. But as Grandma and her quotes went, if there's a will, there's a way. Yeah. And as long as you love what you love, don't ever give up your passion just because you're visually impaired or you went totally blind. Figure out a way to adapt what you love to make it so that it is accessible. As Stacy said, don't be afraid to be the first. I've been the first in so many things, just like I'm a revenue officer for the IRS. No blind person has ever done it before, but I'm making it adapted so that way when someone else comes through, we don't have to be labeled that, oh, you're at the IRS, so all you can do is just answer calls. No, we can get out there in the field as well. So definitely don't let your visual impairment be a handicap, because you're only handicapped once you start thinking that way.
Very true.
It's a closed mind. And before we wrap up, I just want to add a footnote on that one of my biggest realizations becoming blind was you may have to give up some of the dreams and hopes you had, but you've got opportunities to dream new dreams and have new goals that you never even dreamed about before, and open yourself up to that.
This is
Stacy.
Something if that's what you just said.
Go ahead, Naomi.
In relation to the trying new things or things you enjoyed in the past. When I was younger, I was really into dance class, whatever that was, ballet, jazz, tap, modern, whatever. I am now taking ballroom classes, which I never thought I would do again. And it was very nerve-wracking because I thought, where am I going to go? How do I explain to the instructor, hey, I have really low vision, and trying to explain this eye disease. And I was so fortunate to find someone fairly close to me. I shared my story, just like I said earlier, I shared my story. And this man has accommodated me in every single way he can possibly think of. I mean, even down to discounting the pricing on my classes for me. He has special lighting for me because of my low vision. He allows me to touch his body when he's trying to show me something because I can't necessarily see it, but I can't stress how important it is to just share your story, because there are people that are more than happy to accommodate you. And the whole reason I'm even taking the ballroom classes because I am entering a beauty pageant. I've never done a pageant ever in my life, and I'm doing it. And it's something I've never, ever thought of doing. But to Ron's point, I'm doing things I never thought I would do. So share your story. It's
Well,
so important.
let me say, Naomi's constantly working out, so
Yes, she
I
is.
know she spends a lot of time at that gym and the ballroom dancing. So I wish you luck with the pageant.
Thank you.
That's
And
wonderful.
that's Miss, if you guys haven't figured it out already, that's Miss Haven for 2021. Just FYI. I think Stacy was trying to say
Yep,
something.
and then Stacy has something, and just so everybody's aware, just because we want to be respectful of time, we have gone over, and I think that if everyone's okay with this, and this is of course up to you, Ron, if we have a hard stop in 9 minutes, just to give folks a bit more.
That sounds
Hard
good.
stop,
And
hard stop.
let's I know we got a couple of hands raised,
Yeah.
so let's see what's happening here. Yeah.
Okay, so before we go on, let those two be the last last questions, please. Just so we could do our hard stop. Go ahead, Stacy.
So I'll just say this, that in the educator in me, because that is my background, but the word handicapped, and for those who don't know, it is a very demeaning word, and it really should not even be used in today's times. I'll tell you, when somebody refers, when I hear people say the word handicapped, unless they're talking about golf, pretty much every word after that comes out of their mouth, I have turned my listening skills off. It is very insulting. And I really, I had this quote in college that I got from a class that has stayed with me, and that is, attitudes are the real disabilities. So I will leave you guys with that. I am off to the Derby.
All right, Ida Lopez. Thank you, Stacy.
Yes, hello. This is a question for Ron, or a comment on your earlier speech in regards to feeling like a broken toy. You know, I had never found a word, and you said it exactly. I mean, there could be no better way to say it. That is how I have felt. And with that said, is there a group where the blind get together, like maybe a group of singles on social media? I grew up in Houston, but I live in South Texas now, and I'm honestly having trouble finding people with commonalities. And I was wondering if there's some kind of a group that you guys can recommend that's probably like through social media online that I could connect with.
Well, are you talking dating or just social group?
Well, not necessarily dating, but just a social group.
And I know there's several on Facebook. Some good, some not so good, but some are really good. I've met some great friends that I've been able to meet in person, even when they've lived out of state.
Blind pen pals, by the way.
Let me tell you, Chris Schiaffoni, he's our co-host here today. He's been handling the chat and helping us out as a co-host. He's in Canada. I met him 2 years ago. He came to Houston. I met him on Facebook, but through the Blind Pen Pals group. And he, May 1st, he told me last night, he said, that's ironically the day I set foot in Houston for the first time. And here it is, May 1st. He's here virtually with us again, which is really cool because we went down to Galveston and met him. He met Stacy and Raul at that same conference. So, there's groups out there. Blind Pen Pals is one of them. There's blind and visually impaired support
singles.
There's blind and visually impaired peer support group. There's a few on Facebook that I know. I don't know. I'm not on other social media very actively though.
It's as far as Facebook goes, if you definitely put in the search blind under the group search, you'll find all kind of groups that mentions the word blind in it, and you just have to go through and see which one works for you. But that's definitely a way of doing it. I've recently got involved with a app called Clubhouse, and I've met some awesome people on there. The thing with Clubhouse though is that you have to be invited by someone because it is still a beta tested
and only on iPhone.
Yeah, that too.
Okay.
But it's been a great area, and with the group, with the people that I've met off of there, I've joined other groups. So it's a lot of things out there. You just have to put in the search and the time for it.
And like with anything, I would like to say that no matter what you look for, whether it's blindness related or not, and this is for Aida, but for anybody else who's curious, is there's going to be good groups and there's going to be shady groups. There's going to be groups with cool people and honest, people that are looking for the same thing you are, whether it's socializing or dating or whatever. But there's also going to be those kind of creeps or those creepy groups. So, just use some common sense, whether it's blindness related or not.
And this is Stacy. I know people are interested in finding groups that you can find commonality with. But I would also encourage you, as I mentioned earlier when I spoke, I really firmly believe that as blind people, we have our place in the sighted world. So don't be afraid to get out and mingle with sighted people. I talked about my fear when wondering if I would be able to make friends, and I made great friends in college and taught them something about being blind, and they taught me things that I needed to know for functioning in the sighted world. So don't limit yourself to just blind people.
Very true. Very true. And then our last hand of the day is Miss Kamini. See, I messed it up anyway.
Remember, you did say her name right the first time, Greg.
The very
the
first
problem
time.
is I don't remember how I said it the first time.
Thank you, guys. Just mostly comments, I guess. I'll try to be really quick. There's just so much to talk about. We can talk all day and all night. But I just want to thank Chris so much for making this connection with HAVIN. And I'm also a volunteer of the CCB Toronto Visionaries chapter. And pretty much we are a group that is for socializing and getting out and living a normal life. And I also run a group for visionaries that is appropriately called Let's Talk. And it's pretty much about sharing stories, and you're all welcome to join. I will connect with Ron and share some information.
Please do. Yes.
Every Thursdays, it alternates from afternoons to evenings. And there is so much that goes on in Canada. I've always heard that from other people that there can be a little limitations in terms of groups and sports, things that are offered in the States. But I've heard a lot of stories today that kind of says it's partly true, but it was so great to hear the stories and share the stories. And I encourage things like these. And I try to do more of it because I think I totally agree with Naomi, and I'm so glad you're into dance. I'm into dance too. Blind people can do anything if we really want to.
That's right.
And thank you so much for giving me and giving us the opportunity for doing this today. And I don't know what else to say. It was so great being here, and I would like to keep the connection going. Thank you so much.
Ron, if I can, Ron, and I've told this to Ron individually, and I think we might have said it on our board before, but HAVIN was created in the thought process of Houston, but over the last year, the connection that we've gained with you guys from Canada, it's been not only a learning experience for myself, but I believe I can speak for the board when I say it's been a learning experience for all of us, with just you guys coming in and participating with us. You know, we made sure that with the expo, we got the Canadian national anthem played by Karen, who put in a lot of hard work, but just knowing the connection of HAVIN has gone like above and beyond, and it's allowed those of our groups, we do have groups on HAVIN board that are Houston based only, but we've all gotten from this connection with Canada's members in BPN, members in FFB, members all over, that has really come for Canada, and you guys have represented. So on behalf of all of us, I would like to thank you guys for participating with us, because you guys have really showed up, and as the old saying say, showed out.
Thank you. Amen.
Amen. And we had one more quick question in the chat asking if
Actually,
anyone,
sorry, we have quite a few here. Just saying thank you to you guys, talking about how well you've done. Many comments, and somebody does ask, can anybody become a member of HAVIN? I guess you can answer that.
And that's what I was going to address was, you know, our group is still focused here in Houston. We still want to do the Insight Expo in person again, but we're hoping to figure out how to do this hybrid to at least stream what we do live as well. You know, when we do that, and we want to keep on doing workshops as well. So we found a new niche, so much more than just an annual event that we do. You know, as far as joining HAVIN, everybody who's here, your name will be on our email distribution list unless you tell us to take it off. So from here on, you will be on our email list. So as far as joining HAVIN, you're joining our email list. You will get our correspondence. You'll know when we're planning events. And we've really run long. I appreciate all the feedback, interaction, and this is exactly what it was meant to spur and encourage. And I hope we can do something like this again, because I think the biggest thing what we tried to do was make the connections. You know, we're people just like you. We live this life. It's a daily thing. We've all worked through adjustment. And as many pointed out, it's an ongoing adjustment. It's not like you hit the end of the street and like, I've arrived. No, life goes on, and this is life, and that's what we're here for. Anybody on HAVIN want to give one final
I would
shout
like
out?
to.
Go.
Go ahead, Karen.
I'd like to make a comment.
Go right ahead. Let's go.
Well, we were talking about athletics and new things. One of the things that struck me when that comment was made is I used to be at the YMCA here in Kingwood, and Ellen Johnson has never had a blind person in her class. And she sometimes, if I don't do my poses just right, she'll just kind of grab my leg by the and go and say, "This is me," and just move my leg where it should be. And I got to where I learned what her touch was. So over time, I knew to expect it. And if I don't do it right, no big deal. She'll just come over there and correct it and continue her lecture.
Yeah. Thank you, Karen.
All right. Thank you, everybody. So we are reaching our stopping point. And so if we've got closing remarks, Ron, now would be great for that.
I just want to say it again. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. And we've got we're planning just a social gaming outing next time. I'm drawing a blank on the date. Anybody want to help me on that?
It's the 15th, right?
15th for playing games, I believe.
There we go. Thank you. So thank you all for being here today, and I hope you can join us. We'll have game day in 2 weeks, and we will see you then. So,
And also, I'm sorry, just to add on, for the mothers of the group, on behalf of Haven, happy early Mother's Day.
Good job, Greg.
Thanks.
Have a nice day.
All right. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody, and
Bye-bye.
I hope you have a good rest of your day. Stay safe.
Enjoy the weekend.
Bye bye, y'all.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Great workshop.